What if I told you that a man who was once a poor, debt-ridden scribe in an ancient desert city discovered a secret so simple that it could make anyone rich, yet almost nobody actually follows it? What if the reason you are broke has nothing to do with how much money you earn, but everything to do with one habit you have never built? Stick with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this story, you will understand exactly why some people keep their money and grow it, while others watch it slip through their fingers no matter how much they make. This is the story of Arkad, once known as the richest man in Babylon. Long ago, in the ancient city of Babylon, gold flowed through the streets like water. Merchants traded silks and spices, kings built towering walls, and the city itself became the wealthiest place on earth. Yet not everyone in Babylon was wealthy. Most people worked hard every single day and still could barely feed their families. Arkad was different. Arkad started out as a poor scribe, copying laws onto clay tablets for a few coins a day. He had no special luck, no rich family, and no shortcut handed to him. But over time, Arkad became so wealthy that the king himself called for him and asked him to teach his methods to the people. Two of Arkad's childhood friends, a musician named Kabi and a chariot builder named Bansir, could not understand this. They had worked just as hard as Arkad, maybe even harder. Yet they were always short on coins, always chasing next month's rent, always one bad week away from disaster. So one day, Bansir gathered a group of old friends and they went to see Arkad together. They wanted to know his secret. Was he simply lucky? Did he find a hidden treasure? Or was there something else going on that they had completely missed? Arkad welcomed them warmly and told them the truth. He said that he was not born rich, and he was not smarter than any of them. In fact, he said the difference between a man with a fat purse and a man with an empty one came down to nothing more than habits. Arkad explained that many years earlier, while working as a poor scribe, he made a decision that changed the entire direction of his life. He decided he would find a way to become wealthy, not by working harder alone, but by learning the actual laws that govern how money behaves. Arkad shared a story about how he first learned this secret. A wealthy moneylender named Algamesh once visited the temple where Arkad worked. Arkad struck a deal with him. He offered to work extra hours copying the law of the ninth king onto stone in exchange for one small piece of wisdom, the secret to acquiring wealth. Algamesh agreed, and after Arkad finished the difficult task, the old moneylender gave him this line. He said that a part of everything Arkad earned was his to keep. Arkad admitted he did not fully understand this at first. It sounded almost too simple to be real advice. But when Arkad went home that night, he actually tested it. He set aside 1 out of every 10 coins he earned before spending anything else. At first, this felt strange because his expenses somehow always seemed to eat up everything he had, no matter how little he made. Yet slowly, month by month, that small pile of saved coins started to grow. And more importantly, Arkad discovered something surprising. Even though he was keeping 10% of his earnings aside, he found that he could still live comfortably on the other 90%, almost as if his spending naturally adjusted to fit what was left. This is where Arkad revealed the first of his famous teachings, something he called the 7 cures for a lean purse. The first cure is simple: Start thy purse to fattening. In plain words, this means pay yourself first. Before you pay the landlord, before you pay for food, before you pay for anything else, set aside a portion of what you earn for yourself. Arkad suggested at least 1/10 of all income. He explained that most people spend first and save whatever happens to be left over, but there is never anything left over because expenses always rise to match income. The trick is to flip that order completely. Arkad's friends were curious but also skeptical. One of them, a shepherd, spoke up and said that all of his earnings were needed just to cover his basic needs. He asked how anyone could possibly save money when there was barely enough to survive on already. Arkad smiled at this because he had heard this exact argument many times before. He explained the second cure for a lean purse, which is to control thy expenditures. He said that what people confuse for necessary expenses are often just desires dressed up to look like needs. Arkad described the human mind almost like a farm field that will grow whatever seeds are planted in it. If you plant desires, wants, and impulses without limit, those desires will grow to consume every coin you have, no matter how much you earn. He told them that even wealthy men can go broke this way, spending everything they make simply because their wants expanded alongside their income. The solution, Arkad said, was to write down your true necessary expenses and set a budget for everything else, protecting that 10% as if it were sacred and untouchable. Kabi, the musician, then asked a fair question. He wanted to know what the point of saving all this gold was if it just sat there doing nothing. Arkad's answer to this became the third cure for a lean purse, and honestly, this is where the real magic of the story begins. He said that saved gold, sitting idle, is like a soldier standing guard who never gets to fight. The true Arkad explained this with a memorable comparison. He said, imagine a farmer who has 10 cows. If he uses those cows wisely, breeding them and caring for them, his herd will grow year after year, and soon he will have far more than 10 cows. Gold behaves the same way when it is lent out or invested properly, because it earns interest, and that interest itself can be reinvested to earn even more. Arkad called this the power of compounding, though he did not use that exact modern word. He simply said that gold multiplies itself if you allow it enough time and put it to sensible work. Now here is where the story gets interesting, because saving and investing is only half the lesson. Arkad also warned his friends about a mistake that ruins far more people than simply spending too much. This mistake is losing money through bad decisions, and it happens to be one of the fastest ways a person can undo years of careful saving in a single afternoon. What if the very thing that made you feel confident with your money is the exact thing that could wipe it all out in a single bad decision? Arkad had seen this happen many times, and it troubled him deeply because he knew that losing gold hurts far more than never having gold at all. This brings us to the fourth cure for a lean purse that Arkad shared with his old friends that day. Arkad called this cure, "Guard thy treasures from loss." He explained that once a man begins to save gold, a strange thing happens. Suddenly, all kinds of people show up with exciting opportunities, promising huge returns in a short amount of time. Arkad warned that the first and most important principle of investing is not how much you can gain, but how well you can protect what you already have. He said that a man should never risk his hard-earned gold on a venture just because someone else speaks confidently about it. To make this point clear, Arkad told a personal story from his own early years. When he first started saving, a brickmaker convinced him to invest in rare gems from a distant land, claiming the gems could be bought cheap and sold for a huge profit in Babylon. Arkad, excited by the idea of quick wealth, handed over his savings without checking whether the brickmaker actually knew anything about gems. The brickmaker did not. The deal fell apart, and Arkad lost every coin he had saved. It was a painful lesson, but Arkad said this loss taught him something priceless. Before investing in anything, always consult people who have real experience in that specific area, not people who simply sound confident. Arkad explained that gold is naturally cautious and shy. It flows toward those who protect it wisely and hides from those who chase after fast, risky schemes. He told his friends that the safety of their money should always come before the size of the potential reward. Any deal that seems too good to be true, one that promises unusually high returns with almost no risk, is almost always a trap. This single warning, if followed carefully, can save a person from the exact kind of disaster that wipes out years of disciplined saving in one reckless afternoon. The group sat in silence for a moment, thinking about their own past mistakes. Then Arkad moved on to the fifth cure for a lean purse, which he described as making your dwelling a profitable investment. In simple terms, this means owning your own home rather than paying rent to someone else forever. Arkad pointed out that money paid in rent disappears completely, benefiting only the landlord, while money paid toward owning your own home builds something that belongs to you and your family for generations. He explained that a man who owns his own home has lower daily expenses because he is not constantly paying rent, and this frees up even more gold that can be saved or invested. Beyond the financial benefit, Arkad said there is a deep sense of pride and stability that comes from owning your own place, something that renting can never fully provide. This cure was not only about smart money management, it was also about creating a stable foundation from which everything else in life becomes easier to build. Then Arkad introduced the sixth cure, which he called ensuring a future income. He explained that youth does not last forever, and a wise man prepares today for the years when he can no longer work as hard or as long as he once could.
In ancient Babylon, this meant setting aside resources and making arrangements so that even in old age, or if something unexpected happened, a man's family would still be provided for. In modern terms, this is the equivalent of retirement planning and having some form of protection in place for your loved ones. Arkad's point was timeless. Do not assume today's energy and income will last forever. Plan ahead while you still have the strength and opportunity to do so. Finally, Arkad shared the seventh and final cure for a lean purse, and in many ways, this one might be the most powerful of them all. He called it increasing viability to earn. Arkad explained that all the saving and investing in the world only works if a person also focuses on becoming more skilled, more knowledgeable, and more valuable in their work. He said that the more a man improves his abilities, the more opportunities and income naturally come his way.
By this point, Bansir and Kabi sat quietly, absorbing everything they had just heard. It was clear that becoming wealthy was not about a single lucky break or some hidden treasure. It was about consistently applying 7 simple habits over a long period of time. Arkad reminded them that these were not complicated secrets reserved for the elite. They were simple truths available to anyone willing to actually apply them with discipline. But Arkad was not finished. He told his friends that understanding how to save gold was only the beginning. The real transformation came when he learned how to make that gold grow safely over time. And this is where he introduced what he called the 5 laws of gold, a set of deeper principles that explain exactly how wealth behaves once you start building it. The first law of gold states that gold comes easily and grows steadily to any man who sets aside no less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and his family. This law reinforces everything Arkad had already taught, but it adds an important layer. It is not just about saving, it is about consistently saving with the specific purpose of building long-term wealth, rather than saving.
The second law of gold explains that gold labors diligently and multiplies itself for the man who finds wise ways to put it to work, much like how livestock multiplies in the field. This is the law of compounding again, but Arkad emphasized something crucial here. The gold must be invested wisely, and it must be given time. Many people give up too early, pulling their money out before it has a real chance to grow, not realizing that the biggest gains often come after years of patient, consistent investment. The third law of gold warns that gold clings to the man who seeks the guidance of wise individuals in its use. This law directly connects to the mistake Arkad made earlier with the gemstone merchant. He stressed that seeking advice from people who are genuinely skilled and experienced in a specific field is one of the smartest things anyone can do before making any major financial decision. Ignoring expert advice or trusting the wrong people is one of the fastest ways to lose everything you have worked so hard to build. The fourth law of gold states that gold slips away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes he is not familiar with or that are not approved by those experienced in its use. In other words, do not invest blindly in something you do not understand, no matter how exciting or promising it might sound. Arkad said this law exists because people are naturally drawn to opportunities that seem thrilling or trendy without pausing to actually understand how those opportunities really work.
And the fifth law of gold warns that gold flees the man who forces it into impossible earnings, or who follows the seductive advice of scammers and swindlers, or who trusts too heavily in his own inexperience and romantic ideas of investment wisdom. This final law serves as a strong warning against greed and impatience.
Arkad explained that when people become desperate for quick riches, they become easy targets for those looking to take advantage of them. Patience, caution, and steady growth will always outperform reckless shortcuts in the long run. By the time Arkad finished sharing these 5 laws, his friends finally understood something that would change the way they viewed money forever. Wealth was never about luck. It was never about being born into the right family or catching some rare lucky break. It came down to understanding a small number of timeless principles and applying them with consistency, patience, and discipline, year after year, until those small habits compounded into something extraordinary.
Arkad's friends left that meeting with a completely new perspective on money, but the story of Babylon's wealth does not end there. Clason continues the book with several other powerful parables that show these same principles in action through the eyes of different characters facing different struggles, and these stories deserve just as much attention because they reveal how these laws actually play out in real-life situations. One of these stories follows a camel trader named Arkad, a young man deeply in debt, hungry, and desperate for a way out of his financial mess. Arkad represents someone many people can relate to, a person who spends carelessly, borrows constantly, and always finds himself trapped in a cycle of owing money to others. Through Arkad's journey, the book shows how a person can dig themselves out of serious debt using the very same 7 cures Arkad had taught his friends, proving that these principles work regardless of how deep a financial hole someone has fallen into. Arkad eventually meets an old, wise camel trader who teaches him that the path out of debt starts with facing the truth honestly. Arkad had to make a full list of everything he owed and everyone he owed it to. This alone felt terrifying, but it was necessary. From there, the old trader helped him build a realistic plan, one where a portion of his income would go toward paying off his debts steadily. Another small portion would go into savings for his future, and the rest would cover his basic living expenses. Slowly, month by month, Arkad's debts shrank, and for the first time in his life, he began saving money too. This story teaches something incredibly important that many people overlook today. You do not need to choose between paying off debt and saving money. You can do both at the same time, as long as you create a clear structure and stick to it with discipline. Arkad's transformation shows that even someone who feels completely stuck can turn their financial situation around, not through some miracle, but through consistent, honest effort applied over time. Another memorable story in the book follows a young shield maker named Rodan, who unexpectedly received 50 pieces of gold as a reward for his craftsmanship. Rodin had never held this much money at once in his entire life, and almost immediately people around him began asking for loans, investment opportunities, and favors. His own sister pressured him to invest in her husband's failing business venture. Friends came up with exciting-sounding plans that promised quick returns. Rodin felt overwhelmed, unsure of who to trust or what to do with this sudden windfall. Rodin sought advice from a wise family friend who helped him understand that having gold is not the same as knowing how to manage gold. The friend explained that many people who suddenly receive money, whether through an inheritance, a lottery win, or a stroke of luck, end up losing it all within a few short years, simply because they never learned the principles of protecting and growing wealth. Rodin learned to slow down, resist emotional pressure from family and friends.
This particular story hits close to home for a lot of people today, especially in a world full of investment trends, cryptocurrency hype, and get-rich-quick schemes promising huge returns overnight. The lesson Clason presents through Rodin is just as relevant now as it was when the book was first written. Sudden money does not equal financial wisdom. Without the right knowledge and discipline, even a generous windfall can disappear just as quickly as it arrived. The book also tells the story of Dabasir, a man who once lived as a slave after falling into deep debt and making a series of poor decisions. Dabasir's story is one of the most powerful in the entire book because it shows how just far someone can fall when they ignore these financial principles completely. Yet it also shows how possible it is to rebuild, no matter how bad things have gotten. Dabasir eventually escapes his situation and rebuilds his life using the exact same 7 cures and 5 laws of gold, proving once again that these principles work regardless of a person's starting point.
Throughout all of these stories, one theme keeps repeating itself again and again. Wealth is not about how much money a person makes. It is about what a person does with the money they already have. 2 people can earn the exact same income, yet one ends up wealthy while the other stays broke their entire life, simply because of the habits, decisions, and discipline each one applies to their money. Clason wrote this book almost a century ago, using ancient Babylon as the backdrop, but the principles inside it remain strikingly relevant today. Pay yourself first before spending on anything else. Live within your means rather than letting your expenses grow to match or exceed your income. Put your saved money to work through wise investments rather than letting it sit idle. Protect your money by seeking real expertise before making financial decisions, rather than trusting exciting promises from unqualified sources. Consider owning your own home rather than paying rent indefinitely. Prepare for your future and your family's future while you still have the ability to do so. And constantly work on improving your skills and knowledge, because your ability to earn is one of your greatest financial assets.
Arkad's final message to his friends, and really to every reader of this book, was that financial success is not reserved for the lucky, the highly educated, or the well-connected. It is available to anyone willing to understand these basic laws and apply them consistently over time. The city of Babylon became one of the wealthiest civilizations in history, not because its people were smarter or luckier than everyone else, but because they understood how money truly works, and they respected those laws instead of ignoring them. Even thousands of years later, gold and money still follow the same basic rules Arkad described. They flow toward those who are patient, disciplined, and willing to learn, and they slip away from those who chase shortcuts, ignore expert advice, or let their expenses control their lives instead of the other way around. The story of Arkad, the richest man in Babylon, remains a powerful reminder that true wealth is built slowly, brick by brick, coin by coin, through habits that anyone, absolutely anyone, can choose to build starting today.
If this story taught you something valuable today, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next deep dive into the world's most powerful books. Drop a comment and let us know which one of these 7 cures you are going to start using first. See you in the next video.